Extension and supporting us. So thank you, Laura, for being here. At this time, I want to introduce Jeremy Johnson from the Alpha Gamma chapter in Virginia. He is the Affiliate Extension Director and State 4-H Program Leader in Virginia to introduce our distinguished guest.
Thank you, Mike. Dr. Edwin Ed Jones is an Associate Dean of the College of Agriculture and Life Sciences at Virginia Tech and Director of Virginia Cooperative Extension. Dr. Jones holds a Bachelor of Science in Zoology from the University of Washington and a Master of Science and PhD in Fisheries and Wildlife Sciences from Virginia Tech. Ed has maintained a distinguished career in cooperative extension beginning some 45 years ago with his appointment as a graduate research assistant in the Department of Fisheries and Wildlife at Virginia Tech. He has served in professional extension roles from specialist to state program leader to extension director across 3 states, Mississippi, North Carolina, and Virginia. Dr. Jones was inducted into ESP while in North Carolina in 1992 and remains active today in the Alpha Gamma Virginia chapter. His leadership abilities are nationally known and recognized, including his service as chair of the Extension Disaster Education Network, member of the Leadership Advisory Council of the Extension Committee on Organization and Policy, member of the National 4-H Council Board of Trustees, chair of the ECOP 4-H Leadership Committee, and ultimately the chair of the Extension Committee on Organization and Policy itself. His service was recognized with an Excellence in Leadership Award from the Association of Southern Region Extension Directors in 2020. A true believer in extension programming and across all areas of extension, he has provided extensive educational programming and leadership in agriculture, natural resources, community development, rural development, and 4-H youth development. When thinking of cooperative extension's visionary leaders for the 21st century, nearly everyone will recognize the impact of Dr. Ed Jones. From his earliest days as a wildlife specialist at Mississippi State University, Dr. Jones has been providing well-respected knowledge and leadership to Extension's constituents for nearly 40 years. I think it's also important to recognize, in addition to Dr. Jones' professional contributions, that he's a devoted and caring husband and father and grandfather. He approaches his life's work from a place of integrity and compassion. He listens, encourages, and guides others. He is steadfast, calm, and a person of true character. He is committed to ensuring everyone has the opportunity to succeed in life. And with that, it's my privilege to introduce Dr. Ed Jones, the 2021 Distinguished Service Ruby honoree.
Thank you, Jeremy. You could have left out some of those years. You're making me feel older than I want to feel at this point. I'm very honored by this recognition and very humbled by it. And I just appreciate the opportunity to say a few words this afternoon in reflection about what I see coming forward. But before I do that, I want to thank my colleagues in the Alpha Gamma chapter and the nominators for nominating me. Most of all, I want to thank them for the collaboration that they have given to me as an extension director in Virginia. I think Peggy said it this morning that the folks in the ESP chapters appreciate the support from administration. Well, administration appreciates the support from all of you as we collectively try to move forward and do and solve and fulfill the mission that we're called to do. I'm also very grateful for many of the mentors that I've had along the way and the people that I've been able to count his friends and colleagues like Nick Place and Scott Engel and others that have really been important in how I've conducted my organization and my life and what I do. So I want to get into it. And as you can see on the program, the title is Honor Our Past, Create Our Future. In 2011, when I was fortunate enough to be named director for Virginia Cooperative Extension, the New York Public Library was celebrating its centennial. And they published a book, and they titled the book, Know the Past, Find the Future. That phrase kind of stuck with me for a long time, and I got thinking about it, and I've been thinking about what the future of Extension is going to look like. And as Jeremy so blatantly put before you, I'm in the waning years of my career in Extension. And so, I changed that a little bit, and I changed it to honor our past, create our future. I don't want to dwell a whole lot on our legacy. I mean, Scott talked about it some this morning, and Nick has mentioned it. We're an amazing organization. Wise people and understood the circumstances of our country in the early 20th century, and they wanted to build a better nation, a stronger nation. So they created an organization whose sole mission was to provide information and to provide important science-based information to all people without obligation to improve the quality of their lives. What a novel idea. And of course, the individuals' lives improved, so did the community, and so did the country. And so it continued to build, and it is very clear that it strengthened our community over the years. The approach in the beginning was one of addressing the most pressing needs that people faced. We were an agrarian society, and there were issues of crop and livestock production, marketing of those products, the health and well-being of the family, youth development, and community leadership. These items are all connected. The farm and the family were an integrated entity, an entity that helped build and sustain communities. Extension worked very hard to close the socioeconomic gap many families faced. And from the very beginning, Extension was able to adapt to changing circumstances. In fact, not long after Extension was created, our country, in fact, the world, was faced with a pandemic, one that we had probably all forgotten about until the one that we're in the midst of. Agents at the local level jumped into service, understood the circumstances. We had home demonstration agents who effectively became nurses. They, in many places, set up makeshift hospitals. Other Extension agents jumped into service and helped families and neighbors learn how to take care of themselves and each other to survive that pandemic. We're experiencing not much different circumstances today. So on through the 20th century, Extension supported the country through war efforts, along with our agricultural experiment stations. Our partners, in many cases, had helped build the strongest agricultural industry in the world. It taught people how to be healthy, and it spurred on the largest youth development organization in the United States, indeed the largest anywhere. Without question, the United States would not be what it is had it not been for cooperative extension. In fact, our system is the envy of many countries. I had similar experiences as Scott. In Extension, I've had the opportunity to travel around the globe and visit other countries. One particular experience I want to tell you about, and from it were two things that really struck me. One, we have an integrated system with the university. We cannot take that lightly. We are so close. We are the source of knowledge. With the source of knowledge, our expertise and support. We are, quite fortunately, not an independent bureaucratic agency that is more sorely underfunded, grossly underfunded than what we are today. That could be the case. The relationship with our land-grant university helps us to be proactive and on the cutting edge. The second is the presence and passion and commitment of our volunteers. From my experience, volunteerism is very much a North American condition or concept, and one we must also not take for granted. The experience I want to say is several years ago, I was in Kenya at a symposium on extension, and I was giving a presentation about what extension looks like in Virginia. And I commented on the thousands of volunteers we have and the importance of those volunteers. Participants in that symposium asked two questions. One, do you pay them? And two, why would they do that? I said, no, we don't pay them. And they do it because they care about youth. They care about their neighbors, their communities. They care about the people around them. They care about making it a better place. Now, I just want to interject here how important volunteers are. And I want each of you to go home and thank your volunteers. Really thank them, because they are so incredibly important to what we do. And even the ones that are challenging, I want you to thank them. You know who they are. Yeah, I can tell you. So don't forget them as well. It's good to be challenged once in a while. We cannot rest on our laurels, as great as they might be, for what we've done over the last 100 years. The collaborative environment of the early 20th century made it possible for an organization of cooperative extension to arise with local, state, and a federal partnership. We cannot take that partnership lightly. It is incredibly important. We cannot take our accomplishments for granted. We must cherish what we have accomplished, but we must look forward. Whenever my brother and I would do something we were particularly proud of, we would win an award or have some accomplishment, our mother would always bring us back to earth. And she would say, well, that's nice, but remember where you came from. What? Yeah, remember where you came from. I lived my entire childhood in the same house. My whole known family lived in a 30-mile radius. Of course I know where I came from. What are you saying? And it took me many years to finally understand that. You have to understand, my mother had a unique way of using the English language at times. And so you had to do some interpretation. And once in a while, she even made up words. And one of those words was pubatory. And we think it's a cross between puberty and purgatory, but we're not sure. So what my mother was really saying was, you've done good. I'm proud of you, but what are you going to do next? She was proud of us, but she didn't want us to forget that that's not the end. She wanted us always to be thinking about, what are we going to do next? How are we going to continue to serve others? How are we going to continue to grow to be a better person? So we need to remember where we came from. But we also need to ask, where are we going next? Let's create our future. Now, the New York Public Library said, find your future. I don't like that. I don't think our future is something that's around the corner or in a box just waiting to be discovered. The future of cooperative extension is in our hands. And it is up to us, you and me, and all our colleagues, whether we will thrive or whether we will wither away. As we think about what we should do in the future, there are 4 points that I would like to explore. And Laura Perry Johnson, if you're in here, there she is. Last night, she said she wanted to hear advice. She didn't say she wanted good advice. She just wanted advice. So you can take these 4 points as my advice. So we'll jump right in. The first one, language matters. In Extension, we joke about the acronyms we use, all the jargon that we have that you and I understand, but does it mean anything to the average person on the street? I bet if you went up to one of the hotel staff or talked to a random person on one of the Savannah trolleys and asked them, what is A&R or FCS or CRD or 4-H? What do you think they would say? They might have heard of 4-H, but do they know what 4-H is today? I recently had the opportunity, and I think my dean's watching me, so I got to be careful here. But I think I recently had the opportunity with the Dean's Advisory Council of the College of Agriculture and Life Sciences at Virginia Tech to explore what some priorities should be for cooperative extension. And in that conversation to talk about those priorities, I did a little experiment. Instead of asking what should be our priority in agriculture, I said, what should be our priority in A&R? And I did the same with FCS, and CRD, and 4-H. Now, some of our advisory council members had a pretty good idea about A&R, especially those who have been advocates for us in the General Assembly or have been involved in hiring at the local unit offices, but some did not. They had been a part of the college where extension wasn't very prevalent or related, and so they kind of struggled with that a little bit. We moved on to the other program areas, and everyone just kind of sat there sheepishly until someone was brave enough to raise their hand and say, well, what is FCS? What is CRD? And when I told them what they were just a little less confused, not a lot. So language matters. And you would think that many of these people will be able to understand what we're trying to do and what our priorities are and help us determine what those priorities might be as they represent their communities. So, excuse me. It really brings me to the concept of let's use language that people use every day. So what do people think about? What do you talk to your neighbors about? The people in your community, at church, your family. People talk about the economy, right? We're all worried about the economy one way or another. I mean, all of us as extension professionals at least want to raise. And it's and the people in our communities are thinking about, you know, will I be able to keep my job? Will I be able to pay for my kids to go to college? Will I be able to pay the medical bills? Will I even be able to retire? In extension, we contribute to economic development in the economy every day. We don't always think of it in those terms. In many of our states, agriculture is the largest economic engine in that state. And so we have to remember that we are a part of the economy, and the economy is something people talk about. People talk about health. They think about, how do I keep my family healthy and safe? How do I help family members who are suffering from cancer or some other chronic disease? What about vaccines? People think about their children and their grandchildren. Will they be able to get a good education? Will they grow up to be productive, healthy, contributing members of society? These just are some examples of what extension is so vitally important for, but we don't often use the right language. My 8 grandsons are a reminder of why I do what I do every day, and I worry if they will have the same standard of living that I have enjoyed. Language matters. Maybe it's time to change our language. Second, silos. Now, I don't know what came first, the silo or the language. we use, it doesn't really matter, but I contend the two have, over the years, especially since the Second World War, led to our programs becoming more siloed. And if you listen to Jeremy, I've been around for at least that long. What that means is we typically approach issues one-dimensionally, within the discipline or framework with which we work. Is a crop issue just an A&R issue? Is nutrition or diabetes or opioid addiction just an FCS issue? Is community leadership just a CRD issue? No. But that is how we have treated them for a long time. To some degree, silos have served some program areas well with in terms of visibility and support. And at times, that has been at the expense of other program areas. Silos do not reflect the future we need to create in order to thrive and, more importantly, serve well the people of our communities. One of the lessons of an ecological education is that all things are connected. Even those connections may not be obvious or direct. The same is true of what we do in cooperative extension. All parts of the community are connected, no matter how you define the community. We need to recognize that the issues people face are not one-dimensional, but are very complex and require a diversity of people, disciplines, experiences, and thought to address. We must remove our organizational silos and barriers. And in the process, just maybe, it is time to rethink our organizational structures at all levels. Third, engagement. How do we engage all the people that we should be serving? Our history was one of technical experts providing information to people for them to use. Absolutely appropriate in a time when there was limited opportunities for education and communication. We provided newsletters, articles in newspapers, extension bulletins and circulars. We conducted demonstrations and workshops. We did radio programs, television programs, and I'm sure that many of you have done some or all of those in recent times. But the US has changed in at least three major ways. First is education. A significant part of our population has a high school diploma, and a growing number have college or technical education degrees. Education is a key element of closing the opportunity gap and improving our socioeconomic condition. We're a far cry from the norm in the early and mid 20th century. Many of you may be first-generation college graduates, as am I, so the educational level has improved, and this leads us to think more fully about how we need to engage folks at all levels. When I was young, the extension agent was one of the few people in our county, our rural county, who had a college education. That is no longer the norm. We must consider the broad range of educational attainment in planning our programs. Second part of engagement is communication. Communication has become convenient, cheap, and technologically amazing. This became quite apparent and clear to Laura and I a number of years ago. We were at a meeting in Puerto Rico, and we were standing on the portico of the hotel with our cell phones. She was talking to our son, who was in the Army and deployed to Iraq, and I was talking to our daughter, who was in the Peace Corps in Tanzania. Our conversations were as clear as if they were just down the road. After we ended our conversations, hung up, we looked at each other and thought, holy cow, the world has changed. So much different than what it was when many of us were younger. In fact, when I was a kid, a call from my uncle's farm to the county extension office was a long distance call. That call wasn't made unless it was really important. And no one thought to call a specialist. The university, too far away, they probably didn't even know who they were. The world has changed. Third, information. Information's everywhere. Some of it's good, a lot of it, not so much. We all know if it's on social media, it has to be right. Extension is no longer the sole or even primary provider of information. So where does that leave us? It means we need to still be a provider of information, research-based information, to people who need it and can use it. It also means that we need to respect and learn from others as they have experiences, knowledge, and perspectives different from ours, but no less relevant or valid. We must help people understand information coming from different sources and help them to either debunk that information or to support it as appropriate. We must be brokers and curators. We must be listeners and learners. We must engage in all ways with all people. It is not just sufficient or appropriate to be a one-way transfer of knowledge. My final and fourth piece of advice is let's reflect on our mission. As we create our future, we need to be clear about our mission. And simply put, our mission is to improve the quality of life of the people of this nation. We care about our communities. When we start adding qualifiers to that, then we are inadvertently justifying our silos. The silos allow us to continue to do what we have always done, whether it needs to be done or not. Now, I admit, as a specialist, I did some of that. It was comfortable. It was easy. And some people do appreciate it. But is that really what we should be doing? I contend that if we care about our communities and we are called to serve our communities, then the question is, what is the most pressing need or issue in that community? What is it? Think about that. In 1914, Extension was created to address the most pressing needs of our country. It was an agrarian society struggling with food production, health, leadership, and the like. We tackled those issues, and we did it well. So what is it today? Are they the same? Are they different? I challenge all of us to reflect on what the most pressing need is in your community. Then think about what it is you can do to address it. Could be we have specialists and programs ready to go. Maybe we need to rethink some of our programs. Maybe we're just going to need to be the catalyst or the convener who can start some work going in that direction. It's fairly likely that we will need to think differently and engage others in how to address those pressing issues. I believe that much of what I'm encouraging does happen and is happening. There are numerous examples, but what must become the norm in cooperative extension is we have to consciously get out of our silos. We must use language that people are comfortable with and understand. We must be able to engage all people in meaningful ways, and we have to work together to make a difference on those issues that really matter. I challenge each of us to go back to our roots and create our future of doing that which needs to be done for the betterment of the communities we live in and the people we care about. That was the commitment each of us made when we joined Extension. I'm going to conclude with a quote from Aldo Leopold. As a natural resources person, and those of you in natural resources know who he is, he's credited as being the father of wildlife management and has written many essays that are relevant even today. He lived in the first half of the 20th century. And in this quote, he talks about harmony with the land. And he's talking about our relationship with land, much as we think about our relationship today in soil health and related circumstances. This is the quote. We shall never achieve harmony with land any more than we will achieve justice or liberty for all people. In these higher aspirations, the important thing is not to achieve, but to strive. Let us all strive together. Thank you.
Thank you very much for sharing your sage advice and the challenges to spur us on in our extension work. And at this time, it is my pleasure, with help Peggy, to pin the ruby pin. Jeremy, are you and Laura? Okay. I might have Laura to assist. So thank you once again, and let's give them both a round of applause. And so you know, the presentation is recorded, and we do make those available on the National ESP webpage. So not only could you view this again, but you can also view presentations that have been recorded and are posted on the website. Now, just a few announcements before we close this session. The viewing with authors, poster presentations will happen at 1:30 to 2:15, and the room is small. So don't ever want to arrive at 1:30. And it'll just be a down and around. The name of that room is not in my notes, Pulaski Room. So if you were there this morning, you'll know it as the Arctic Room. So the temperature has been set for maybe a lot of people. Also in the lobby, we encourage you to take a moment and meet the members of Team Tri and greet them, as they're the new management team for National ESP. And also, Elevate Extension talks will occur outside of the Pulaski Room, kind of like on the main entrance into the hotel. There's an area. Look for us. If you haven't uploaded your video yet, and you want us to do it for you, we can do the filming and we can do the uploading. So show up anytime during the poster presentations at 1:30 to 2:15. We'll take care of that for you. If you want to do it yourself, the link still works, and you could, not have the pressure of us watching and filming for you. But notice that link that was emailed out in advance still does work. Don't upload it tomorrow. You got to upload it today, because we will be judging those later today. So there is a deadline, 2:15. Tomorrow, the Northeast Regional Breakfast is in the Pulaski Room. So Northeast regions, we recommend you to wear layers of clothing. Maybe some extra hot plates for your food. All other regions, your breakfast is in the foyer. That's where the food is. And then they'll come in here. So, but it's going to be divided, right? Okay. So we're not all eating together without the East. And do we have any other announcements at this time? That's all that I have. Thank you very much. And just thank you very much for sharing again. And I'm sure glad my phone didn't go off since I left it on your podium. Thank you all and see you later.